If you've ever struggled with glute activation when you're running, or maybe you just don't feel like you are using your glutes as much as you should when you're running, then this video is for you. Hi there, I'm Dr. Lisa, physical therapist that helps runners prevent and treat injuries, and now officially a certified run coach. And oftentimes when a runner is injured, whether it's your foot pain, big toe, knee pain, or hip pain, that glute max is just not working 100% like it should. Now there's a couple reasons for this. It could just be a motor control issue, and I'm going to show you some exercises that cover it. It could also be a hip mobility problem. So if your hip is stiff and it can't get into that full hip extension as you are pushing off the ground, then you're not going to be able to contract that glute max 100% like it should. Another reason is that it could be a timing issue of your muscles when they're contracting. So your glute max is the beefy, powerful muscle that's helping you push your leg off the ground. Your hamstring is guiding your leg forward. But if the hamstring turns on before the glute max turns on, maybe it's overpowering, maybe it's a lot stronger than the glute max, then you're not going to be using your glute max 100% like you should because the hamstring is taking over. On the flip side, it could be that your deep hip external rotators are more dominant, your hip flexors more dominant, your adductors are more dominant, or a lot of the time I'll see low back stability muscles being more dominant versus the glute max. Now there's all these compensations that can happen because of a weak glute max, so let's dive into 3 exercises that you can do to improve your glute max activation when you're running. The first exercise is called Pigeon glute activation. So you're going to get into a pigeon pose, like the yoga pose. So one of your knees is bent. So if my right knee is bent, I'm working my left glute with this exercise. And if my left knee is bent, I'm working my right glute. So I'll show you with me working my right glute. All you're going to do in this position, my hands are on the ground, my knees on the ground, my toes are on the ground. From here, I'm just working on the glute activation or the motor control on that neurological level. So I'm trying to tell my brain to tell my glute to turn on. So it's a very simple contract, relax exercise. So all you're going to do, lift your knee up, extend your knee, squeeze your right glute cheek, and relax. Lift, squeeze, relax. Lift, squeeze, relax. It should be turn on, turn off, squeeze, relax. If this is difficult for you, I just want you doing more reps. Think 30 to 40 reps at a time. Anything with motor control, you need high rep. Obviously low volume, we're not using a resistance band, we're not using any weights or anything like that. As you get better at this, and you want to progress it, you can start to hold for 5 seconds. And relax. And then you can hold for 10 seconds, and then it's time to move on to the next exercise. Once you've mastered the pigeon glute activation, I want you moving on to hip extension into the wall. Now we just went from non-weight bearing exercise to now a standing exercise in single leg. So you need a wall, and all you're going to do, I'm going to show you using my left glute. So I'm going to have my right foot about 1.5 feet from the wall, and I want you to put your ball of your foot and your toes of that left foot against the wall. Now all I'm doing here, slight bend in my stance leg, make sure your hips are facing straight ahead, there's no rotation going on, and I'm just going to push this foot into the wall. So I'm going to activate my glute max, I'm going to activate my hamstrings. It's an isometric hold into hip extension. So go ahead and push, hold, trunk stays tall, hold, relax. Push, hold. You can even feel your glute max being activated. You can probably feel your hamstrings shaken, and relax. So you can start with a push. You can start with a push, hold, relax, push, hold, relax. And then you can progress into push, hold 5 seconds, relax for about 20 reps, and then progress into a 10-second hold. So push, hold 10 seconds, shake it out, relax, and do that 10 times. This one's really good to do if you're having hip pain or any sort of knee pain and you want to do some rehab exercises before you go for a run. I highly recommend this exercise just to get that activation going and get that motor control going before you get into your run. The last exercise is a hip hinge with the wall. So again, I love using the wall just for like some more hip stability before you go into like a single leg exercise or even a kickstand position. So I'm gonna start with my left leg on the ground, my right foot into the wall. So when my right foot's into the wall with this one and my left leg's on the ground, I am working my glute on my left side. So stance leg is the one that you are working. Now, oftentimes I'm already doing it here, but you can see my pelvis is rotating towards my other leg. So I want to make sure before I even start this exercise that I am swiveling my pelvis so it's facing forward. And from this position, also make sure your big toe is pushing into the ground. So now you're starting with a strong base and a strong foundation before we even begin. So swivel it in, make sure it's facing forward. And from this position, I'm not using any weight. You can use a resistance band that you're holding on to or a dumbbell, but I want you to get the form down first. So slight bend in this knee, and you're just going to hinge back and come back up. As you hinge back, think about trying to tap your glute max into the wall. It's probably not going to happen, but it's a good cue just to make sure that your hips go back. And it's a true hip hinge versus you squatting down. So stance leg stays slightly bent the whole time. Hinge backwards, trunk goes forward, back stays flat, and come back up. You're probably going to go to around mid shin, depending on like trunk length, torso length, and leg length. I know for me, I'm very short torso, so I'm going to about mid shin. And the reason this is important is because you don't want to be rounding your spine, rounding your back and your shoulders just to get lower in this hip hinge. That's not the point of this exercise. It's not how far down you can go. It's all about how far down can you go while keeping your back flat and without making any compensations.